Palestine, a small strip of land on the eastern Mediterranean. It's a land of ancient history. It's the birthplace of major religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. For centuries, Jews, Christians, and Muslims lived there together. But this coexistence has been marked by periods of conflict and cooperation. This land holds deep religious significance for billions around the world. It is a place where history echoes loudly. The history of this land is complex. It is intertwined with the stories of empires and conquests. The region has seen the rise and fall of numerous powers. Each has left its mark on the land and its people. This makes understanding the Israel-Palestine conflict incredibly challenging. However, to comprehend the present, we must first journey into the past. For centuries, the region we know as Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans were Muslims who ruled over a diverse population. This included Jews, Christians, and Muslims living in relative harmony. However, the late 19th century saw the rise of nationalism. This had a profound impact on the Ottoman Empire and its territories. Following World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed. The land of Palestine came under British control. This was known as the British Mandate for Palestine from 1920 to 1948. The British faced a difficult task. They had to balance the aspirations of both the Jewish and Arab populations. Tensions grew during this period, culminating in violence and instability. The British ultimately failed to find a solution that satisfied both sides. This set the stage for the conflict we see today. The late 19th century witnessed the rise of two powerful nationalist movements, Zionism and Arab nationalism. Zionism, a Jewish nationalist movement, emerged in response to centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe. Zionists sought to establish a Jewish state in their ancient homeland, Palestine. This, they believed, was the only way to guarantee the safety and security of the Jewish people. At the same time, Arab nationalism was also gaining momentum. Arabs in the Middle East, including Palestine, began asserting their own desire for self-determination. They rejected the notion of a Jewish state in Palestine. They saw it as their homeland. Both movements gained traction throughout the early 20th century. This set the stage for a clash of national aspirations. By 1947, the situation in Palestine was reaching a boiling point. The British, unable to manage the escalating conflict, turned to the newly formed United Nations. The UN proposed a plan to partition Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab. This plan was known as UN Resolution 181. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, while the Arab leadership rejected it. They viewed it as an unfair division of their land. The rejection of the partition plan led to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Neighboring Arab states joined the conflict, aiming to prevent the establishment of Israel. The war resulted in a decisive victory for Israel. It gained more territory than initially allocated under the UN plan. Over 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes. This event is known as the Nakba, meaning catastrophe in Arabic. The war solidified the existence of Israel, but also marked the beginning of a protracted conflict with its Palestinian neighbors. The Six-Day War and the occupation. Tensions remained high between Israel and its Arab neighbors following the 1948 war. In 1967, these tensions erupted into what became known as the Six-Day War. What began as a preemptive strike by Israel against Egypt quickly escalated into a full-blown conflict. Israel emerged victorious, capturing the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. The 1967 war had far-reaching consequences. Israel's victory resulted in the occupation of Palestinian territories. This occupation continues to this day. The war also led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. It further solidified Israel's control over the region. However, it also fueled Palestinian resentment and strengthened their resolve for self-determination. A glimmer of hope, the Oslo Accords. After decades of conflict, a glimmer of hope emerged in the 1990s. The Oslo Accords, signed in 1993 and 1995, marked a historic moment. For the first time, Israeli and Palestinian leaders engaged in direct negotiations. The Accords were meant to be a stepping stone towards a two-state solution. The Oslo Accords led to the establishment of the Palestinian Authority. This gave Palestinians limited self-governance in parts of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The Accords were met with optimism by many. They hoped it would pave the way for lasting peace. However, the Accords failed to address several key issues. These included the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. The shadow of violence, the Intifadas. Despite the Oslo Accords, the underlying tensions of the conflict remained. Two Palestinian uprisings, known as Intifadas, erupted in response to the ongoing occupation and the lack of progress toward a peace agreement. The first Intifada, which began in 1987, was largely a non-violent resistance movement. It involved protests, strikes, and civil disobedience. The second Intifada, which began in 2000, was much more violent. It involved suicide bombings and targeted killings by both sides. The Intifadas resulted in thousands of casualties on both sides. They also led to increased security measures by Israel. This included the construction of the separation barrier in the West Bank. The Intifadas demonstrated the depth of Palestinian frustration and their determination to achieve statehood. However, the violence also fueled a cycle of distrust and animosity that made peace even more elusive. Section 8. Gaza, a strip of land mired in conflict. The Gaza Strip, a densely populated coastal enclave, has become a focal point of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Controlled by Hamas since 2007, Gaza has experienced several rounds of intense fighting with Israel. These conflicts have resulted in widespread destruction and a dire humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The people of Gaza face severe restrictions on movement and access to basic necessities. The ongoing blockade and recurring conflicts have created a desperate situation for its inhabitants. The international community has condemned the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. However, efforts to find a lasting solution have been largely unsuccessful. Section 9. Key issues: land, security, and identity. At the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict lie several key issues. These include territorial disputes. Both sides lay claim to the same land. The status of Jerusalem in particular remains a major point of contention. Security concerns. Israel has legitimate security concerns given its history. However, its security measures are often seen as oppressive by Palestinians. Refugee crisis. Millions of Palestinian refugees remain displaced since 1948. Their right of return is a major sticking point in negotiations. Settlements. The expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank is condemned by Palestinians and much of the international community. It undermines the possibility of a contiguous, viable Palestinian state. Identity and narrative. Both sides have deeply ingrained narratives of historical grievance and victimhood. These narratives make it difficult to find common ground and build trust. These issues are complex and deeply intertwined. They require sensitivity, compromise, and a willingness to understand the other side's perspective to resolve. Section 10. The path forward, a dream of peace. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the most intractable conflicts of our time. Despite decades of efforts, a lasting peace remains elusive. The two-state solution, with an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel, is still seen by many as the most viable path to peace. However, realizing this vision requires significant political will and compromise from both sides. The international community has a crucial role to play in facilitating dialogue and creating a conducive environment for peace. Ultimately, a lasting solution must address the core issues of the conflict. This includes ending the occupation, finding a just solution for refugees, and ensuring the security of both Israelis and Palestinians. The path to peace is long and arduous. However, the human cost of this conflict demands that we never give up on the pursuit of a just and lasting peace.